Haters will hate always. That's what they do. They hate.
Hello there, welcome to the show. This is Strength for Tomorrow Radio. Train today so you can be stronger tomorrow. That's our tagline, but I always forget to say it. It's a shame because it sounds kind of cool, I think. But my name is Stuart Thompson. I am your host. Last week we had Kyle Gregg on. What an epic show that was. I think we broke the longest show ever record. And that wasn't surprising because, boys a dear, that man can talk. If you haven't listened to it already, do check it out. Get a notepad and a pen, take some notes. We had a great time and we got through so much stuff, so many different topics. This week, we're thinking about criticism, internal criticism, external criticism, how to deal with it. This is a topic that everybody deals with to some extent at some point in their life, whether they're a little kid or you're a grown adult, everything in between. Maybe you're so tough and so resilient that you've never even noticed that you face criticism. Stick around and we'll have some frequently asked questions at the end. So first of all, what is criticism? So I think we all know what it is, but it can come in different forms. It can come in ways that we maybe don't expect, or it's maybe not so obvious. Some of us deal with criticism in different ways than others. Some of you, maybe in your life, openly and loudly that will criticize you. Some of you will have more sort of passive-aggressive undertones to deal with from your critics. There may be some subtle comments that aren't obviously critical, but they're almost harder to call out in that case. But both, they can kind of wear you down, they can kind of get in your head and kind of annoy you. And, well, we're going to discuss today what to do about it. So who criticizes you? Well, you'll probably know better than I will, because you're living your life. I'm not living your life, funnily enough. But maybe you were brought up in a family where your parents maybe took a kind of a critical approach, or they leaned in that direction rather than an encouraging one. Maybe your siblings are always in your case. Maybe it's your friends. Maybe it's your boyfriend, your girlfriend, your husband, your wife. Maybe it's your employer. Maybe it's your co-workers. It could be your business partner. I don't know. You probably know better than I do. But that's for you to identify in your own life and try and deal with it then appropriately. So how you deal with it will obviously change depending on who it is criticizing you. And if you haven't brought up in a family where criticism is the modus operandi, where you are from no age criticized, don't do this. I'm not saying don't get me confused here. I'm not saying that discipline and criticism are the same thing. Okay, there's discipline, there's training. That's fine. That's parenting, really, isn't it? But if it's always criticism and it's never encouragement, if there's only ever critique or criticism of how you were as a child, and there's never encouragement, what do you think that's going to do later on? You're probably going to become your own biggest critic then, and we're going to discuss that a little bit later on as well. So I'm going to give you some phrases that are critical. Some of them are more obvious than others, and we'll probably spend a little bit of time chatting about them, and you can think of variations of these, but they're quite interesting. Some people might not see them directly as criticism, some people might not even think of them. Other people could use it and get into their head and annoy them all day, all week, and maybe even for years. So the first one, just one biscuit won't do you any harm. Now, some of us might have heard that, some of us might not, but just one biscuit won't do you any harm. That's aimed at somebody who's maybe trying to get in shape or trying to lose weight or trying to, make a positive change. It could also be aimed at somebody who is, maybe they are a little bit obsessed with something. Maybe they're, in a health kick and they do it every year, and they're kind of, people feel like they're putting the brakes on the fun, and, they're making the rest of the crowd feel bad, making the rest of the room feel bad. But it's still criticism, isn't it? It's somebody taking their 2 cents and throwing it at somebody else and judging them for not having a biscuit. Sounds silly, but that is criticism. It's criticism of their choice not to have a biscuit. They're trying to persuade them. They're trying to talk them into doing something that they don't really want to do, and they're doing it in a bit of a passive aggressive way. They're trying to not guilt them, but they're trying to put a positive spin on it. It can sound harmless, but to said to the wrong person, it's criticism, and it's criticism that is not helpful. Another one is you're obsessed. Do you ever hear that one? So that one gets tossed about quite a lot. I suppose mainly at people who tend to be in really good shape, who take care of themselves, who work out regularly, and are just, they prioritize their health, they prioritize their nutrition and how they diet, they prioritize their sleep. To some people, that's seen as obsession. Yet, if we were to binge watch 3 hours of Netflix, is that obsession? If we were to, I don't know, there's all sorts of obsessive things that we can get involved in, but it always tends to be the person who does the healthy things that gets accused of being obsessive, right? Obviously, if there's a stalker and they're obsessed with a person, that's a negative one, right? I'll give you that. But it tends to be tossed around in the realm of somebody who looks after themselves, looks after their health. But it's again an accusation. It's a critique that's not necessary most of the time. Sometimes maybe there's a case for it, but a lot of the time it's to kind of ease the guilt of the person who's saying it, right? So if you happen to be someone who doesn't really care about their body, doesn't really care about their health, doesn't really care about what shape they're in or losing weight or just looking after themselves, it makes you feel better if you can stop somebody else around you from doing those things, right? Because misery loves company and all of that. The next one applies more to women than men. It is the following. If you keep training with weights, you'll end up looking like a man. So there's no part of that is flattering. There's no part of that is complimentary. It's a downright insult. It's a downright criticism that, again, makes other people feel better. So this is going to be for all sorts of reasons. It's hard doing these sort of shows and doing a sort of discussion. It's hard to assume what the person is thinking when they say something like that. It could be a few things. It could be they don't like being weaker than you. It could be they don't like your commitment to it. They don't like the fact that you have committed to a process and that you've changed your body for the positive. You have got firmed up. You've gotten toned. You've gotten leaner. They don't like that you are stronger than them. There's all sorts of reasons. There's just jealousy. There's just so many. There's maybe sometimes just misinformation. They've heard that training with weights builds muscles on women, and it does a little bit, but they're forgetting about the hormones. They're forgetting about that part, and that is a problem whenever it comes to something like this. Ignorance. It's bringing somebody down unnecessarily. I know if someone said that to you and you're a girl working out, I don't know how you probably find it hard to not wrap the barbell around their neck. What about this one? Now, it maybe sounds like it's not too bad, but whenever you actually overthink it, it's pretty mean. Whenever someone says something like, especially to a lady, you suit it whenever you're carrying a bit more weight. Like, it sounds like that's a compliment. It was like a backhanded compliment. And there's all sorts of other variations of this, but basically someone is sticking their nose in where it's not wanted. Now, as a personal trainer, I think quite often people assume that we look at other people's bodies and appearance and we judge them. I can wholeheartedly say that I don't really care. As in, if you're not my client, how your body looks and what you eat, what you do, it really is none of my business. And even for clients of mine, in one sense, it's none of my business. I'm there to give advice, but I'm not there to be the food police or to be the exercise police. I'm going to help encourage you. I'm going to try and get you to adopt healthy habits if I can. I'm going to encourage you, certainly. I'm going to try and incentivize it as much as I can and help you see the bigger picture and the perspective that will help you to do it. But at the end of the day, I'm not going to be mean to you or try and coax you or guilt you or criticize you into doing what I think you should do. You know better how to live your life than I do, but I never look around at people and be like, assess or assume their weight. Even if a potential client comes into the gym and I don't care what size, shape, age, I don't care what they are, I'm not going to look at them and be like, oh, I'd say they're X amount of stone or they're such and such amount of weight. Honestly, I can't really tell. Now, I might have a stab in the dark, but I don't do it because I'm always wrong. I don't like being wrong. Until someone steps on the scales, I don't know what weight they are. Until I put a tape measurement around someone's waist or whatever, arms, then I don't know what size they are. And I don't, like, it really is none of my business. And I think a lot of personal trainers are the same. Sometimes people feel guilty, or they feel like they can't eat certain foods in front of personal trainers because they're going to be judged by them. And honestly, it's not the case. And if there is personal trainers out there, like, I haven't met them, but I certainly am not like that. So it's a funny one, but basically, no one has any right to tell you, you're the size or this shape or whatever. Um, Sometimes doctors feel the need to tell people that they're overweight or whatever. That's fine as long as the doctor themselves is not overweight. It's a bit like a doctor telling you you should stop smoking if they themselves smoke a 20 a day. It's a bit rich coming from them. It's harder to take it from them, and it's a bit like a PT. If a PT is a bit overweight, them telling you that you're out of shape or overweight, it's not going to wash the same, is it? It's not going to have the same effect. But that's not the role of a PT, and it shouldn't be the role of a doctor either. It's a really strange debate, I suppose, it never goes into it, but basically it's criticism at the end of the day, isn't it? It's a criticism. Now, there are other phrases out there that maybe seem quite innocent. Things like, you look very skinny, are you okay? Or, you're so lucky to be in such good shape. Or, you hardly eat anything. Or, one day away from the gym isn't going to kill you. And they're said quite innocently, they're said quite flippantly, and they're passed off, um, seemingly without any second thought. But whenever you start overanalyzing them, if you're the sort of person who does overanalyze things, they can really quite damaging and quite cutting, and can even cost you sleep. They can worry you. They can just get in your head and really make you anxious. But again, it comes back to that idea of people having an opinion on you and on your life and on your body type, on your body shape, on your genetics in some cases as well, which you can't help largely. But even someone saying, like, one day away from the gym isn't going to kill you, that again is to make someone feel better, isn't it? It's to try and make them feel like, oh, like, I don't go to the gym very often, so I'm going to stop them going to the gym. Same idea. Or saying to somebody you hardly eat anything. How do they know? Are they with you 24/7? Probably not. Even if your husband, your wife isn't with you 24/7, they're not going to see what you have for dinner. If they see what you have for dinner, they're probably not going to see what you have for lunch. They don't know how much you eat, or how little, or how often you eat during the day. Um, you know, you're so lucky to be in such good shape. As if it's entirely down to genetics, as if it's not down to your training, as if it's not down to your nutritional habits, as if it's not down to all those little choices you make. Saying someone's lucky to be in good shape, I don't believe it. It doesn't make sense, and it again is quite insulting to somebody who has worked hard, to someone who is disciplined. Or saying something like, again to a female probably, you look very skinny, are you okay? Now, there's a way you can say this, I suppose, I have concern for somebody. There's another way that's just insulting and it's rude, even to say something like that. Or another one, remember you used to be in really good shape. That's like a sly dig, I suppose, like guys would tend to say to each other. But again, it's not helpful. It's quite damaging as well, and it can really be cutting if you let those things get to you and get into your head. So some of those criticisms, some of those comments, some are more hurtful and more harmful than others, right? Very, very few of them are helpful, encouraging, or caring. And a lot of people will be supportive whenever you decide to change your life. Say you do something like strength training and you start eating better. But for every 9 supporters, you'll always get that one critic, right? You'll always get that one person who doesn't get it, who feels that you need to hear their criticisms of you. It's just the way the world is, right? For every 9 good comments on Facebook, there's always some idiot that feels that they need to give their 2 cents, which are worth less than 2 cents. But you get what I mean. And you know the type. It might be subtle digs, it might be little disguised jokes, or maybe they're fully blown, barbed comments, just real spiteful, and they can ruin your good day. They can leave you thinking about how much, they can leave you thinking about it much longer than you wish, or even maybe they think that you would think about it for. They might just think it's a comment passing it off the cuff, but they don't intend for you to think about it the rest of the evening or the rest of the week. Maybe it even keeps you awake at night. Maybe you're trying to decipher, what do they really mean? What were they really saying? And sometimes those covert ones are a little bit more annoying in that sense, because you're trying to get them out of your head. But all in all, if you're trying to make a positive change for yourself, that can be really tough. And especially if you've had lots of unhelpful habits ingrained for lots and lots of years. So thoughtless, rude comments, they are the last thing that you need, and they can also leave you questioning about what, how much work you're putting in, about what your goal was in the first place, and how much of it can you change? Has it been worth it? Maybe you've lost £10, but you've a bit to go, and someone making a comment or a sly dig about your weight is a good example. They don't know how much you've lost. All they can see is where you're currently at, but they don't know how far you've come already. They don't know that you've overcome the most important parts and that you've changed some habits that are going to, in the long run, do tremendous good. So they can leave you questioning all those things, and it really, really sucks, basically, because they don't really know you well enough to be able to comment at all. So the big question is, how do you deal with criticism? We are all going to face criticism at some stage, whether it be at the gym, about our bodies, about our performance, about whatever. Throw in whatever you want. I know this is a fitness podcast, but you could apply it to life, couldn't you? How you deal with it will depend on a number of questions. So, for example, how long have you been subjected to the constant criticism? Maybe it's only a comment here and there. Who's it coming from? So how you deal with it will obviously differ depending on whether it was your mum and dad, or whether it was just some idiot online, whether it was your teacher, whether it was your boss. How you deal with it, how you cope with it, and how you answer them, it's going to be different. So what is the criticism in relation to? There's lots of different questions that are going to determine how you put up with it, how you deal with it. So the most obvious one, or the first course of action for a lot of people, and probably the wisest one, is going to be, you're going to just ignore it. Just ignore it. Just shut your ears, don't listen to them. And this might be a wise approach to start with, simply because it's the easiest thing to do. It takes the least effort, and it takes the least amount of energy. And you might try this approach and it might be successful, it might do the trick, and then they might just give up and go find somebody else. Sometimes they're just looking for a bite. Sometimes they're just looking for somebody to push back against them. But yeah, you just keep pushing forward and keep your head down and keep working. Keep doing what you know you need to do to be successful in whatever it is you're trying to do. Maybe you're trying to succeed in whatever it is you've set your sights on. Just keep moving forward to get around it. But after a while, it might start to wear you down and permeate you if you're stuck with somebody at home or in a job or whatever, and they're just constantly in your ear giving you criticisms all the time. It might just start to erode your attitude, and before you know it, you've no self-confidence and you feel really down on yourself. And that might lead you to the next option, which is pushing back. So should you push back? When do you push back? If you do choose to push back and you choose to tell someone where to go, basically, who is it you're directing it to? So a good question to ask yourself before you decide to give them both barrels and let them have it and, go into a tirade back at them. Good question maybe to ask is, does that person have your best interest at heart? So if it's your parents, they probably do. If it's your siblings, yeah, probably do. Friends, probably do. But there's some people, and they're not going to have your best interest at heart, so it's going to be easier to push back against them, and it's going to make sense to push back against them. Simply because maybe those people, say your parents, your siblings and your friends, they genuinely think you're out of order and you need a good kick up the backside to get you back on track again. They're doing that out of love. They're doing that out of wanting the best for you. They're not doing it to hurt you or to humble you or humiliate you. They're doing that to try and push you to the next level, to try and get you, to try and help you. So pushing back against them, maybe it has their place. If they're always criticising you, if they're never encouraging, their approach is always to criticise everything you do, they never look for an opportunity to encourage you or to build you up or to say good things about you, then yeah, push back by all means, I would say. I think that's sensible. If it's co-workers and it's just every day, yeah, push back, tell them where to go, tell them where to get off. But sometimes it's just, there's idiots online and you need to just ignore them. Just ignore them. It's not even worth you wasting your two seconds to reply to them or to tell them what you think of them. They've wasted time out of their life telling you what they think of you or whatever the aspect of your personality or body shape or character that they want to criticize. So Pushing back against them is a waste of time, if you ask me. How you push back is entirely up to you. Obviously, you're going to push back slightly differently against your boss if you feel like they're criticising you unfairly. But, your parents, you might want to have a sit-down conversation with them and be a bit more respectful. Same with your friends, same with your siblings. You don't want to lose these people. I guess you can always get a new job, but you can't get more parents, you can't get more siblings. Yeah, you can maybe get more friends, but it's probably a bit longer of a process, right? There's no application process. The next suggestion is maybe going to seem a little bit off the wall. It's not going to seem as um, obvious, but what about evaluating the criticism? Oh, never thought of that, did you? No, but seriously, like, if someone's always criticising you, um, you don't have to listen to it, you don't have to accept it, you don't have to believe it, but sometimes it's good to actually evaluate it and go away and assess it and see, do they have a point? Do you see their point? Are they right? Could you have done that better? Could you improve? So whether that's your gym performance, whether that's your strength, whether that's your body shape, whether that's your whatever, your fitness, your health, your nutrition, can you improve? How are you going to improve on it? And again, depending on who the criticism comes from, it may or may not be more valid to evaluate it. Okay, so if it's someone who's just literally trying to get a rise out of you, or someone who just wants to put you down all the time, maybe don't spend as much time evaluating it. But if it's your parents, if it's your friends, if it's your siblings, maybe it's worth evaluating the criticism. If it's your boss, maybe it's worth evaluating the criticism, because like they want the best for their business, for their company, and they want their employees to do their very best. So if they think you can improve and you can do better for them, sure, maybe you should do that. But yeah, it's something to think about. Evaluate the criticism. Take what you can out of it. If there's something that you go, yeah, maybe I could have done that better, try and work on it. Don't just always think everybody else is always wrong all the time. If there's something that just keeps coming up that you feel like you need to work on or improve, maybe you do need to do that. Don't just go, nah, bury your head in the sand and I'm right, everyone else is wrong, I'm never wrong. You know what I mean? And in a similar vein, what about asking someone else for their opinion? So if you're, say for example, right, someone who's criticised, said you're putting on weight, or said you look too skinny, whatever it is, say some sort of body issue or gym issue. What about just asking someone else for their opinion? So say some of your co-workers has said something. Ask your friends, what do they think? Ask a PT what they think. Ask your family. Ask someone else. Ask someone who's going to give you their opinion and they're going to be honest. Don't pick your friend that's always got your back. Pick one of your friends who says things that upset you sometimes. You know, one of those people, one of those friends. We've all got that friend. Say one who you think isn't going to give you the nice, easy answer, but is actually going to give you the truthful answer. And see, is the criticism valid? You know, does it stand up? And you know, you might be surprised sometimes when you get someone else's opinion, because they might be like, yeah, I think that is the case, and or they might be alternatively be, nope, you're talking nonsense, forget about it. Another way to deal with criticism, say again it comes to like a body issue, so whether it's performance or how your body looks, whatever. Sometimes it's because you set yourself a particular goal, and whoever's criticizing you doesn't like it, whether it's friends or family, whoever, they just don't like it, and they want to kind of bring you back in line. They want you to be unsuccessful to make them feel better, like we said earlier. So if those sort of comments come your way, sometimes I think it's good to reflect on what your goal was initially, what it was originally that you set yourself, because it can throw you off target. If you think, right, my goal was to get to from £215 down to £170 eventually, and give yourself a time frame, a realistic time frame to do that. If that's the case, it's important to kind of go back and go over what is it you wanted to achieve, not what somebody else wanted you to be like. You want your body shape or your level of fitness or your eating habits to be a certain way, and you can be easily swayed whenever people are constantly bickering and just nibbling, just kind of like whisper in your ear these stupid things that you aren't interested in. So if you can go back, reflect upon your own goals, have them written down, write them down somewhere. I think I said this before, but write them down and see it, and then say it out loud, whatever, and just simply remember it in your head. That's going to be a really powerful way to get yourself back on track and just to shut out all the noise if that criticism is invalid and it's unhelpful. And then ask yourself whose opinion really matters. Because chances are, the person who's always criticising you, a lot of the time they're not going to matter. Are other people's opinions more important than your success? Probably not, especially if they're people who, are just there to criticise and they're not there to help you or to support you. It should be said at this point, that's incredibly important, that you're the reason you're trying to achieve your goal, not anybody else. So not, don't let your parents set your goal for you. Don't let your husband or wife set your goal for you. Don't let your children set your goal for you. Don't let your PT set your goal for you even. Don't let your coach set your goal for you. You set your goal, and that way you can own it. That way you can achieve it, and it'll be exclusively your success and nobody else's. And nobody else has a hand in it then either. But also, it means that you're going to be more driven to get that goal and to achieve it because it's yours. Nobody else has set it for you. If it's somebody else's, sometimes that's a way to kind of fall out of it and go, well, I never really wanted to achieve it in the first place. Get yourself a goal that you really, really, really want to achieve. So whether that is a weight loss goal, whether that is going from a 36-inch waist to a 30-inch waist, whether that is squatting 150 kilos, whatever it is, whether you want to, be able to run further, run faster, or bike further or bike faster, whatever it is, you figure out your own goal and get back on it again. I've had a few clients in the past, and it doesn't happen too often, thankfully. At least I don't hear about it, but there's one girl, and she was training, getting really, really strong, like lifting loads. Took her squat from 30 kilos to 80 kilos. She wasn't a big girl, she wasn't tall, she wasn't heavy, she was just a normal shaped girl. She was a good shaped girl, but she got really strong. She bench pressing loads, she was deadlifting loads, doing all these things. And then I think it was her boyfriend. He was kind of like, if you kind of keep doing this, you're gonna start looking like a man. And I remember she mentioned it to me, and I couldn't help but laugh. But it sounded like he was getting a bit intimidated by how strong she was getting, because she was probably dead. She would pick him up and deadlift him or bench press him. It was ridiculous, but it was also so untrue. Like we've highlighted in numerous shows about how women have certain hormone balance, men have certain hormone balance, and no matter how hard a woman tries to become like a man through weightlifting and get manly muscles, it doesn't happen because of the wrong hormones, and that's the end of it. But it was kind of telling that guy was just a little bit insecure maybe, and a lot of time that's a good point actually, is people's criticisms and people's comments to you can come from a place of insecurity. It's not that they're trying to ruin your life or make you feel horrible or put you off certain things. It's that they feel insecure, and they're expressing that in a certain way, that they're trying to get you to act in a different way so that it doesn't make them feel bad or look worse or whatever it is they've thought about in their head. I had another client in, and her goal was to try and get a little bit leaner, just tone up a little bit. So she did weight training, she did a little bit of cardio. It was mainly weights. She achieved it mainly through nutrition and lifting heavy weights. Eventually we stopped doing HIIT and cardio and things because she didn't really enjoy them, and we got the same results, if not better, from just doing weights. And she could not believe, first of all, how much she was able to eat. She actually said, if I'd known I was able to eat this much when training, I'd have done this years ago. Direct quote. But anyway, her colleagues were sort of saying things like, oh, you're getting very skinny, you're getting very thin, you're losing a lot of weight. And we put her on the scales every 2 weeks or every month, and her weight actually was going up. Her weight was going up, her waist was going down. She measured her thighs herself as well, they were going down. She couldn't believe that she was able to lose fat. Her weight was going up because she was getting stronger and muscle density and all of that. But her weight more or less went up a little bit, but it stayed more or less the same. But she was just kept saying, no, I'm not. But I'm not losing weight. I'm the exact same weight. I'm slightly heavier, if you must know. Not that it's any of your business. But it really annoyed her. It was really upsetting to her because they just kept feeling that they needed to comment on her weight, even though she was feeling better, looking better, sleeping better, eating better, and she was happier about all of that. She was getting loads. She was able to eat loads. She couldn't believe how much she could eat. But just a couple of people's comments really upset her and offset her. But that was the time I had to just sort of say to her, listen, does their opinion matter or does it not? Does your opinion matter? What were your goals? And just remind her of those things, because their opinions didn't matter. They seen her for a few hours in a day. If it upset them, so be it. but she was able to achieve really, really amazing things, and she was feeling happier and she was feeling better about it. And her partner was also really impressed with her dedication and what she achieved from it. So she was being healthier. That's the end of the story. They didn't know what she was eating. They didn't know what she wasn't eating. She was eating well in work, and they couldn't get their head around it. So with any of these things, I think we have to, not take things personally and not think about them, not dwell on them. Just consciously try not to dwell on them. And that can be easier said than done, I know. But what's a good way to stop thinking about them is to get on with something else. Do something productive. Do something that's going to help. Do something that you're going to enjoy, something that you love, and try and put your efforts and your focus into something else, and don't let those stupid comments from just clowns eat up your brain space, eat up your thoughts processes, and take up your headspace. It's not worth it. More often than not, those comments that come from a deep insecurity, as we say, that someone has for one reason or another, and it's little to do with you. It's just that they feel a bit bad about themselves or they feel insecure. Try not to take them too seriously. Don't take them to heart. Laugh at them, humour them, and then quickly wipe them from your mind, because they aren't worth more than 2 seconds of your attention. Seriously, most criticism, water off a duck's back. It shouldn't cost you a second thought. A big one as well is internal criticism. So how many of us are our own biggest critics? Quite a few, I think. A lot of us are disappointed if we don't achieve something in the gym that we set ourselves to achieve. A lot of us are disappointed if the scales go the wrong direction that we were hoping for, and we beat ourselves up. We don't need anybody else to come along and kind of tell us, "Oh, you've put on weight," or "Oh, see your waist getting bigger," or "See your arms are shrunk there, lad." Nobody needs that, right? Nobody needs that, because we're our own biggest critics. We will criticize ourselves more often than not about things like that. We don't need someone else coming along and saying that. Where does that come from? It come from all sorts of places. If you've been brought up, as I said earlier, in a house that kind of emphasised criticism, brought you down, kind of always criticising this and that, or a household that was kind of parents that were kind of focused on aesthetics, so how you look, how you're presented, and that was the main focus, not how kind you were, or how polite you were, well mannered, or you did the dishes, or hard working. Sometimes if you're brought up in those environments, those can carry over into adolescent and then into adulthood, and they can be hard to shake. That mindset can be difficult to shake, and maybe that's something that you need to work on. Maybe that's something that I need to work on, is just shaking those things off. Now, I'm not saying that my upbringing was that. I would say probably the opposite, but it can be difficult, and I've met people who just are their own biggest critic. They're so critical, and they're of themselves, and no matter how well I tell them they're doing, they don't believe me. They're always hard on themselves, whether it's exams or whether it's physical performance, whatever it is. They're just so hard on themselves. They won't give themselves a break. But that's probably harder to deal with than external criticism. But sometimes I think that's when trying to focus on a goal, trying to press ahead and achieve it, that is something that can really help overcome internal criticism. That I found in years gone by, maybe 10 years ago, I overthought everything. And I guess maybe part of it is because I had more time in my hands then. I had more time to think about things, and you can just sit there and think about this or that, or about, you just get obsessed with certain things in your own head. Whenever you get older and you get busier, and you got a family, you've got a business or whatever, you don't really have time to think about yourself in those regards, or criticize yourself. You just have to keep pressing forward and trying to keep moving and keep the wheels going and improving, and overthinking things doesn't really help. So getting yourself busy with productive things, trying to focus on productivity, so whether that is in business or whether that is in your fitness, trying to improve some aspect of your fitness, your strength, I would say that is another good way to deal with internal criticism. Get around friends as well, supportive friends who are going to build you up instead of tear you down. Get people around you, good people around you, who are going to just talk sense into your own head whenever you're talking nonsense. And just to balance this discussion out, have you heard the phrase? It's kind of in social media a lot now, and adverts and all these sort of things, and self-help books and self-help programs. The phrase "I'm enough," or "I'm worthy," or all those sort of things. But what happens if you aren't? Do you know what I mean? I'm not saying that in a like I'm trying to bash up your your self-confidence or your self-esteem. All I'm saying is a bit like what we said about evaluating criticism honestly and with logic. What if, a good example again is if you are someone who is like really, really, really overweight, like to the point where you're playing with diabetes, if you are playing with heart disease and cancers, if you are if you're overweight to that extent, or you are just got terrible habits, is it a good thing or a positive thing to say that you're enough? I'm enough, because do you know what I mean? And I'm not trying to beat your self esteem up. I'm saying your character, your personality, all those things. Yes, you are, but physically, can you improve? Can you improve your health? The answer is yes. I'm going to answer that for you. You know what I mean? So I want to balance this discussion out by just not just sort of telling you like big is beautiful and all that sort of stuff. That is another debate, perhaps, but beauty is in the eye of the beholder. I fully believe that, and people saying all bodies are beautiful. Again, beauty is in the eye of the beholder. If that's your thing, that's none of my business. But is it a positive thing, and is it a helpful thing to encourage people in obesity? Encouraging people towards all sorts of cancers, all sorts of heart diseases, and heart attacks. Is that a healthy message to send out? Big is beautiful. Now, it might be beautiful to some people if that's your thing. Go for it. That's absolutely none of my business. But I'm just kind of throwing this in here, a bit of a spanner in the works, because sometimes criticism, right? I'm not saying we should go around criticizing people who are overweight. Absolutely not. It's nobody's business. But there's kind of a thing in the media now, and a kind of an agenda that is trying to push this thing, that's trying to affirm people in their unhealthy, in some ways, suicidal habits. Like if you are currently obese and you're having several McDonald's a week and you're eating several takeaways and fast foods a week, you are slowly killing yourself. Now everyone's obsessed with COVID and stuff at the minute. Everybody's kind of thinking about that and how it can be deadly for some demographics and some people with comorbidities. But do you know what I mean? Cigarettes kill you slowly. Should we encourage people that cigarettes are beautiful? Should we encourage that? Do you know what I'm saying? I'm throwing this in here because there's been a kind of a debate going for some years. Fat shaming. Fat shaming is a thing, and in recent times it's been heavily criticised. I think rightly so, because nobody's the right to comment on anyone else's body unless they're asked to, and in which case you can do it in a kind way. You can do it in a way that's helpful and not just being mean. Fat shame, it helps no one, and it only enhances the sense of superiority that the one who partakes in it. They just feel better about themselves for calling somebody else fat, and it's really, really mean. It's really unnecessary, and it's really, really unhelpful. But let's not forget that the alternative has also been shamed for years, and it's not condemned, and there's not even any recognition. If you try to take care of your body by building healthy nutritional habits, if you work out, it's socially acceptable to kind of make fun of that person, right? And that's what we're kind of saying. A lot of times people are ridiculed, or they try and get, it's like a game to try and trick somebody into getting the dessert, or if that's their thing and they feel like they need to avoid that, I don't think you should try and sway them from that. It's none of your business. Let them do what they want. If they start to make visible progress and start to get in good shape, it's okay to kind of label them as obsessed and there's something wrong with them, their mindset, and trying to persuade them into doing unhealthy things like drinking copious amounts of alcohol, skipping their workout, and then having poor food choices. So do you see what I mean? There's kind of an imbalance there. Fat shaming bad, and then fat loss shaming, it's fine. You can kind of make fun of those people. Now I know I'm probably gonna get some comments about what I've just said, or people might be picking up wrong. Hopefully not. Hopefully you know what I mean. I just don't think it's a positive thing to encourage people in habits that are gonna slowly but surely lead to chronic illnesses and diseases. I don't think it's something that the media should encourage, and I don't think it's a positive thing. I think we should try and encourage and help those people out of those unhealthy habits rather than flipping it altogether and turn it around to something that's not. You can not comment on someone's body, but also not affirm them and support them in the way that they're slowly killing themselves. Makes sense? But We talked about goal setting a few episodes ago, and I think that's another really important aspect of dealing with criticism. Whenever you forge a clear goal for yourself that you want to achieve, snide comments from others will just roll off your back. The more you consider your goal and you understand your goal, how it can be achieved, the time scale, the process, the outcomes, the less time you have to think about people's unhelpful comments. It's a bit like we said, you're going to keep rolling forward, you're going to get busy, you're going to get productive, and you're going to make it happen. And you got to remember this, you're never ever going to please everybody, right? You're just not. Everyone's got so many opinions, everyone's got so many tastes, and everyone's got so many views. You're never going to please them. And you aren't trying to reach anyone else's standards. You should be only trying to achieve your standards and the standards you set for yourself. Set them high, but set them achievable. And the choice really is yours. Do you want to spend your time, energy, and money surging towards your goal, getting stronger, getting leaner, building muscle, enhancing your heart health, hormone balance, metabolic function, and all the other outcomes, productive, beneficial outcomes? Or do you want to fall away to someone else's jealousy, petty comments, snide remarks? It's up to you. It's up to me. With all that being said, you shouldn't feel guilty about letting loose every now and then, and you should make the most of special occasions, birthdays, Christmas, a night out, cinema, having a barbecue, all these other one-offs. They should be enjoyed for what they are, unless you're going to compete in a bodybuilding competition, or you're trying to make weight for a fight or something, or some sort of competition, or you're going to go for Miss Northern Ireland or something. You probably don't need to worry. You probably can let loose and just enjoy yourself. Feel free to have cake, dessert, popcorn, burgers, hot dogs, ice cream. They're all fine in moderation, like we've said before in the nutrition episode. But for some people, just turning off those things altogether and avoiding them, there's nothing wrong with that as either. If that's what somebody wants to do, if that's what works for somebody, let them do it. Let them kind of figure out their own pathway with regards to their nutrition and their relationship to nutrition. The problem, I guess, is whenever a one-off becomes like a 2-day event, becomes a weekend, becomes a daily habit, and becomes a lifestyle, that's when you're in trouble. You don't have to take this stuff if you don't want it. You're in charge of it. No one should ever be forcing you into taking anything. Just conform to their expectations. Some people just eat things or drink things to be polite. I don't think there's anything wrong with politely declining. Actually, whenever I grew up, I used to think it was polite to decline if you went to somebody's house and they offered you something. I was kind of so shy and so timid. I'd be like, no thanks, no thanks. Whereas now, I kind of realise that it maybe is offensive if you don't try something or don't have something. But either way, it depends how close you are to them. Depends what your friendship's like. But I just remember that as a child, I wouldn't eat or drink anything. Oh no, don't eat their food. They paid for that food. That's their food. They can't be eating that. I guess it says a lot about my upbringing maybe, but some people are just, they go to their other people's houses and they eat all around them, and there's nothing wrong with that either if that's been offered. It might not seem like it, but everyone really admires people who are incredibly disciplined, committed, and even if one or two might express it through cynical, thoughtless comments, everybody they want to kind of have that willpower, don't they? And they might go, oh, they're a weirdo, or they're obsessed, or they're this, or they're that. The fact of the matter is, they would kill to have a willpower like that. They would kill to have discipline like that. And the way they kind of express that is through little petty comments. So now it's time for some frequently asked questions. The first question actually is a question that a listener of the show, I think he's a listener, he sent it in via Instagram, so maybe he just seen something on Instagram, but his name's Eamon. If you're listening, Eamon, this is for you. I did answer him already, but it's a quite good question. It's one that comes up time and time again, and it's any tips for ab workouts. So this is something that comes up quite regularly, and I thought I would share the answer I give him with everybody else. So I asked him, first of all, was it for assisting with performance or for aesthetics only? Because there is a difference. Things you do for aesthetics with regards to core and ab work it's going to be different. So if it's for aesthetics, the main thing is your body fat percentage and genetics. Okay, so some people just grow larger abs than others and do it much, much easier. Some people are naturally inclined that way because of who their parents are. It's as simple as that. Some people can have visible abs with like 12 or 15% body fat, and others will have to be a lot leaner, like sub 10. And there's really no magic formula. like doing, some people do lots and lots of sit-ups, like hundreds of sit-ups, or things like that. But it's much better to add more resistance and do less reps, do fewer reps. So things like weighted crunches or variations of crunches with a bit of resistance, like bands or weights and things like that. Some ab exercises, happen to be kinder on your lower back than others. So things like knee raises, leg lifts, well executed planks, shoulder taps, V-ups, weighted crunches, Russian twists, decline sit-ups, dead bug, ab wheel rollouts. They all activate the abs pretty well. So they're all good options for if that's what you're kind of into. For athletic performance, it takes a more holistic approach. So rather than just focus on the abs, which is at the front, think about your core. So think about right the way around your torso. Think about that portion, and try and build strength the whole way around, with a variety of core exercises. And body fat percentage really doesn't matter as much when it comes to the functionality of the core, which is hard for some people to believe. Not everybody that has a six-pack has a strong overall core. They might just have big, strong abs, but what about all the other muscles around are there for stability? So unless your body fat happens to be over 35%, in which case it can make certain movements more difficult, perhaps for getting up, like sit-ups and crunches and things, because your tummy's in the way. Side planks or variations are all good. You can add side leg raises into those. Wood chops with bands, with dumbbells, pallet press, stir the pot, dead bug. Those are all great ones. Ab wheel rollouts are really good actually as well for functional purposes. You can do rollouts on Swiss balls, hollow holds, hollow rocks. There's loads of great examples. And then of course doing your heavy compound lifts like your deadlifts, your squats, pull-ups, presses, things that require stability, and the more weight you shift, the more strength is required. Stress recovery adaptation over and over and over again. All those, the heavier weight you lift, the stronger your core is required to be to enable you to do those lifts and to do it with stability. So hopefully that answers your question, Eamon. I've elaborated maybe a little bit more there than I did in the message, but hopefully that's helpful for somebody else out there as well. And the next FAQ is, do I need to go to failure on every set? So this is a hard one to answer, I guess, without seeing your program, without seeing what your goal is, etc. But generally, no, you don't need to go to failure in every set, especially if you don't have a spotter. Some exercises are easier to go to failure on than others, but you don't have to go to absolute failure on every set. I rarely do. Now, if you're trying to get a good pump and you're trying to finish off, like, curls are obviously a good one to do to failure. So you get a good pump in the biceps. Guys love doing that, don't they? If you're doing squats, absolutely not. Do not go to failure in squats. As long as you're progressively overloading, as long as you are adding a little bit more weight than last time and trying to do a little bit more work than last time because your body has adapted, your muscles have adapted to it as well, then that's fine. So what you should really aim for is you want to struggle to kind of finish the last rep. You want to, it shouldn't be easy, but you wouldn't be able to probably do another one without some sort of assistance. But that's kind of the stage you want to get to. You want the last couple of reps to be kind of difficult. You don't want to be breezing through however many it is you do, whether it's 3, 5 or 10 or whatever. You want to make sure that it's a little bit of a struggle those last couple of reps. And if you feel that you can maybe go for it, just try and go for it. That's fine, but don't train to failure every set. If you're failing all the time, there's an argument to be made for you actually train your body to fail. Okay, so you get used to failing. You get used to not executing the movement fully. You get used to not completing the sets, and that can be a bad thing. So failure sometimes is a good thing if you're feeling in a sensible range. If you're feeling it in a range that is what you're aiming for, and it's not 3 or 4 reps before it, yeah, that's absolutely fine. But in general, no, don't go to failure, especially on things like deadlifts or squats. Otherwise you'll be calling an ambulance. Now we have joke of the week, or jokes plural should I say. So last week, after I uploaded the interview with Kyle, I put the show together, I forgot to ask him for his joke. He wasn't very forthcoming with it, so it doesn't fill me full of confidence, but he forgot to give it to me, so I'm going to give you 2 this week, so doubling the value of the show. This week's joke, actually, the first one is from Gary, who's one of my clients, and he very kindly shared this joke with me the other day. So Gary, if you're listening, I'm going to credit this to you, or I'm blaming you depending on what the reaction is like from everybody. So here we go. I just got a job in the chess making factory. I'm going to pack it in though because they can't give me nights to do. It's good, isn't it? I quite liked it. You can send your complaints to Gary because, I thought it was great.
That is very much adequate.
And the second joke, straight from the horse's mouth. I asked Kyle would he send the joke in since we missed it last week, so he's very kindly sent this in via voice note. Enjoy and listen out, see if you can hear his dirty little snigger at the end.
What kind of exercise do lazy men do? Diddly squats.
Thank you very much, sir. You're a gentleman and a scholar.
So that's a wrap. Thank you for joining me for another week. Hopefully this was helpful. A little bit different, I guess, more of a mindset type of topic. But let me know your thoughts. Let me know if you have to deal with criticism. Let me know if any of these tips or conversations that I've had with myself have helped you, or have just given you the confidence to be able to deal with it. If you would like to get in touch, email is info@crossfunctionalfitness.co.uk. You can send in questions, send in comments, send in hate mail, whatever you want to do. Send it in, and I just love the attention basically. But hopefully you have a great weekend, and I shall catch you next Friday again. So remember, train today so you can be stronger tomorrow. Thanks for listening.